Yeah.
Now start, Tim.
Now start. Tim Arrowood here, People's Home Equity. Woo! All right, nice try. Thank you all. Okay, the food's free now. So depends on the participation. We may or may not give out little invoices. So I was going to talk a little today about non-QM mortgages. I know it's boring. Mortgages are boring, but it's kind of actually become a little bit. I've gotten a fair amount of experience with them in the last year. But so you probably want to know, what is a non-QM? So a QM mortgage is a qualified mortgage. It's the Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, and all that stuff. So so back after 2008, there was a lot of shenanigans, we'll say. It was before I got into the business, so I had no responsibility there. But so the government says we're going to make these qualified mortgages, which basically means that we've got to show that the borrower has the ability to repay. So what does that mean? We got to show that we actually check to see if they made this much money. We have to check to see if they have this much money in their bank account. All those different things. And so so somebody would come along, before I understood or knew about the non-QM stuff, they would say, well, I got all this money, but I don't have a job. What do I do, right? Well, I can put 50% down. Well, if in the qualified mortgage world, if I gave somebody a mortgage just because they put 50% down, that would be considered predatory lending, because I knew that they didn't have the ability to repay, but I set them up anyway. And so there's something called non-QM. So it's traditionally we have brokered it out, but we have some in-house products right now. But so non-QM is the stuff that doesn't fit in that box. And the best thing for me, there's the top three things that I see are a bank statement loan, which would be we would take somebody that's self-employed, for example, that doesn't show that they make a lot of money on their tax return because they wrote a lot of stuff off or whatever, and but they have a lot of cash flow coming through. So we could use a 12 or 24-month bank statement loan where we could say, well, like my example is, I've got a guy that, and I may have mentioned him before, but he owns a chain of physical therapy stores in Hawaii. And he looked at his tax return, he made $75,000 last year. Well, when we look at the cash flow that's actually coming through to him, because the underwriter decided that he made $114,000 a month, right? So the difference is significant, and his ability to buy was significantly different, right? So now, typically the non-QM stuff are going to be for higher net worth people, high credit scores, willing and able to put some money down. But it does open up some doors. So in this guy's case, he has bought one. Well, he's a twofer for me. So one of the transactions was he bought a primary residence. It was about $750,000 primary residence, and he was nobody else could get him qualified. So we did a non-QM loan, and we're looking at the underwriter says, well, this is how much you've brought in every month in cash flow, and based on that we can use a certain percentage of that based on the type of businesses you have and those kind of things. So that worked out well. The other one that I did with him, which is another type, is a DSCR. Matt and I've talked about DSCR. I may have talked about it with you all. So a debt service coverage ratio, which instead of having income from an individual, we have the income from the property. Correct. So if the property's going to, if the property will, like I've got one going right now, a couple in Memphis buying a new construction in Bristol. They're buying, it's like $329, new construction. They're buying it as an investment property. They want to rent it, so he doesn't have any income. So like, I can't do anything because you don't have any income. Well, now I want to make this investment property, and so the property appraised, but we also got a rent schedule from the appraiser, and they said, well, it should rent for $2,200 a month. So magically their payment, we made it. They put a little bit more money down, a little bit less money down. 25% or more is typically what we're looking at with a DSCR. And so we got their payment where it's $2,200 a month. The ratio of the income from the rental to the payment was 1, right? So it's 1 to 1. Now we can go less than 1 to 1, but the rate's higher and some other things. So they had the money, so they decided to put more money down. So that's a deal and actually it was a referral from a new agent and I had just told that agent that, hey, I know you're working with somebody else, but we can be a little creative. We have some other products. So first one he sent to me, I looked like a hero because it was a deal that was going to be dead, but now a nice little $330,000 purchase. So we got a 12-month bank statement or 24-month bank statement. We've also got the DSCR for investment property. We're also looking at like an asset depletion type loan. So if somebody's got a lot of stocks and bonds and things like that, but they don't want to deplete them, we can use some of that money to act as either offset a down payment because we'll attach some of that risk, or we'll use it and show over depletion over 30 years, then they could afford the property. Let me think. There was another one. So it was DSCR. There was foreign nationals. So a friend of mine is from Canada. He has Canadian income. He has Canadian assets. He moved here to run a plant in Greenville for a company that's a Canadian company, and he gets paid not as a W-2 employee in the U.S. This is a U.S. subsidiary, so it's complicated. Nobody else would do this, right? So he's working for a U.S. subsidiary, but he gets paid by the parent company in Canadian dollars. And so we were trying to figure out how to make that work, and I thought, well, surely a local bank would do that because, so I sent him here and he said they won't do it. I was like, oh, they won't do it. So I tried to farm him out to somebody, and I was like, okay, well, so I found a non-QM company. And in this case, it was he didn't fit in their box either, but it was a good risk for them. So they're doing they did the loan. Now the rate was 9.5, which freaked me out, but we had already gone down so many other paths that we were all happy to get 9.5, right? So knowing that we'd probably refinance them once things settle down in a year or two, but we can also do. Like I've got a fellow that was referred to me. He's wants to invest in property in the U.S. He lives and is a citizen of South Africa. So for him to buy here in the States, he's got the cash to put down. But how's he going to buy anything here? So in his case, we get him to set up an LLC in the state of Tennessee, and we would have proof of funds, whatever the funds that he has them in there, and we have tried to find credit reports, which I learned that South African credit reports are different, or I just don't have access to them. There's a lot of things, so those are some of the challenges. But we went through and got him pre-qualified, so now he's just in the hunt right now. So typically you're going to have at least 25% down. So when I look at the lender in those cases. They're taking a more of these loans would be like a manually underwritten loan. Like, so what we do on a normal basis is 99% of the loans we do are automatic underwriting. So I don't know if you guys, the terms AUS or automated underwriting system, where we put all somebody's information in a computer program and it says thumbs up or thumbs down or two thumbs down, and so it's easier, it's quicker, it's better pricing. If somebody fits in that box, then we would want to do that. But in certain cases, they don't. So as you're talking to people, it's tough on the low, like our Mr. Joey Bagadonuts, from Southern California. He wants to use a DSCR, which is fine. But the problem is he's wanting to stay in a lower price point. So, like, we're stuck with a minimum loan amount. Like around here, I mean, it's hard to find anything now under 150, but there's a minimum loan amount of 150. For us, the margins are quite a bit less, so we prefer to keep them to be larger loan amounts anyway. But we'll, we're not real picky right now. So once you've been hungry for a while, you're a little less picky. I used to not do $80,000 houses. I love $80,000 houses, right? So, but in his case, he's just his purchase price is a little on the low side. So, trying to find something in general, those kind of things. But there's also the fellow that I was telling you about that we did the the 12-month bank statement loan. We did a DSCR for a log home in Sevierville, right? So he bought about 450, and he was telling me just the other day that he had grossed $100,000 in income from that one house, and he said he spent $12,000 on cleaning, and 3%, whatever that number is, on service fees with like Airbnb, and he's looking to buy 1.4 down there, right? So it's like, so I cannot tell you because they came from somebody else, but you wouldn't eat them if I bought them, would you? Oh, donuts. Okay. It's just Joey bag of chicken. It's not Joey. It's not Joey bag. No. So to me, what's happening is I'm realizing that at first I was scared of them because they were different, and we were brokering them, right? Which you guys, it doesn't mean anything to you all, but when I do things on a daily basis, I know our underwriters, I know our systems, I know our guidelines, and I can with a high level of confidence, I can pre-qualify somebody, pre-approve somebody. I know it's going to work. With some of these things, it's like I think it's going to work. I'm not sure. I try to set the expectations in that respect. That but the best thing to do is to get them pre-approved, like we have with Joey. But we are still at the mercy of will it appraise, not just value and condition, but also will the rent schedule come back. Now these folks in Bristol, they don't intend to rent it a traditional rental. They intend to do a mid-term rental, like for traveling nurses and things like that. So they're thinking they're going to get $3,300 to $3,500 a month out of this rental, as opposed to $2,200, which would you get for a long-term kind of thing. So another thing about the DSCR, which is interesting, is that what's her name locally? The bank that we not Dana. Is it Dana?
Yeah. Farm Credit?
No.
Dana, I forget how to use the P.
First Community?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, Dana.
Yeah. So anyway, they have some great programs. Like, so if you're just getting into it and you've got 15%, because 15% down is fantastic, right? And they'll do up to what, 6 doors? 6 doors. So I mean, those are a great program. So and it may or may not, if you've got the income, if you fit in their box, that's probably a better product, all right? So now what happens is two things. One is if they don't qualify for that program because maybe their income isn't there, so you're going to have income to qualify for that, surely. So if you don't qualify that way, then this might be a good fit. But the other reason might be that, okay, I've already done those 6 doors, and now and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac is like eight properties that you would have, and it's like they don't want that risk. And some of the local banks, what happens is they feel like that they're looking at balancing their portfolio, and they're like, I'm afraid I've got too much invested. I got too much of you on my books, right? And I'm, not that you're a bad risk, but it might be that that I just don't want to have that concentration of stuff with you. Or what happens is, and I could see this, in some people's situation where we want so much documentation, right? So it's like I need everything about I need your tax returns. I need, like, many times you've got a self-employed person that's got 5 or 6 businesses. I did a lake house on Watauga. It was 1.2, and a good friend of mine, he owns 5 businesses, and he calls me up. I mean, he can buy anything he wants, right? He makes all kinds of money, but he calls me up and says, well, I'm under contract. And he said, I got 30 days. What do I do? I'm like, Ben, you should call me first, right? So I'm like, well, there's a cheaper path, which would be traditional, get your tax returns and all that stuff, but I need a year-to-date P&L. And he's like, oh, it'll take me 3 months to get a year-to-date P&L. Like, okay, so we can't go that route. So, and what are your long-term intentions? He said, well, I'm going to pay the place off in 3 years. It's like, okay, so rate doesn't matter, right? So in that case, it's just condensed over such a short period of time. So we ended up doing a DSCR loan because he was planning to rent it out. He may use it for himself some, but I mean, he lives in Elizabethton. I mean, he owns a place there. So for him, it was, I don't want to fool with all the documentation, right? So he just didn't have the time, didn't want to do it, didn't want to miss the deal. And for him, he felt like he was buying it under market it was off market, I think. So he was buying it under market. So he was like, I would rather pay more because I know that I'm, if I paid $20,000, $40,000 extra just in the financing, I'm buying it, 100,000 under or 200,000 under what it probably would go for. So he made that business decision. So having those tools in the toolbox, it's it's kind of like having that specialty wrench, that you rarely use, but when you need it, you need it. When the water's spraying on you, and it's like, oh, I need that thing. So those are some of that's the basics. But I think that we've, in the beginning, as I said, I was nervous about putting my reputation on the line, and so I didn't want to do them. So a lot of disclaimers up front. This may go sideways. Be patient with me. Yeah.
Wasn't that like last year, the end of 2021-ish?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And so now it's like I know the ropes a little bit better, feel more comfortable with that, and just like anything else, just making sure that the borrower understands what they're getting into. I mean, it could be a VA loan, or it could be a THD or anything, but I like to make sure that full disclosure, right? Because things can go sideways, and it could maybe not even be our problem. Like this house, the one in Bristol, we assumed that it would rent for $2,300 a month. That was what their payment was going to be. But I had this conversation with them and saying, look, now if it doesn't appraise for that, then you may have to put more money down. It's like, okay, I get it, because we've got it. Some people, it's like borderline. It's a little bit more difficult. But they knew what was coming. The appraisal came back. It was $2,200 instead of $2,300. They put a little bit more money down. They got a better rate because they went from 25% down to 30% down. So, yeah, okay. So, but one of the keys with that is that you've got to, if you're going to do the DSCR, you have to own your current home, right? So what happens, and the reason they want that is because they don't, for me to say, hey, I don't have a home, but I promise you that I'm going to buy this and I'm going to rent it out, when they're trying to buy a primary residence. And so the rules are so much different for a primary residence because the government has made the laws in such a way to
Oh, I didn't know that was Dustin. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
The
the other kids here. So, but they don't want somebody to misrepresent that they're buying a primary residence when it's actually, or buying a second home, or a investment property when it's really primary. So, anyway.
It's also helpful when you have folks that are over leveraged, like they have bought all they can buy.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they want to buy more property because they know the market, they know where it'll cash flow, they know what they can do, the bank still goes, your debt is pretty high for your income. Oh, but it'll cash flow. Nothing.
Yeah.
And then this comes into play there, because
Right.
they don't look at anything. They're just like, that's fine. Put this money down. Does this product cash flow? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I've been thinking about, where do I market this? Well, I would think, and this is just new to me as I think it, now that I'm comfortable with it. Now I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go after some of this. Well, CPAs and financial planners, their CPAs are working with self-employed people, businesses, and it's like, well, or it could be, it could be anybody, but we're looking at people that are difficult to finance and they don't fit in the traditional box, and so.
Be in your investor crowd. DSCR is throwing out all the
Yeah.
companies to go to.
Yeah, exactly.
You can also go, I know there's different products where you can go higher, but they're always just looking at that debt there, because most of them that are snatching these deals are wholesalers or whatever. They're scraping stuff off the top. It's not a conventional 9 to 5.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that we're looking at, I've got some people asking about as well. We can do refinances cash out. So if you got somebody that's got a property and it's already cash flowing, then we could be able to scrape off some of that. And, the Burr method. So the idea was, well, you buy it, you put some into it, and maybe it's just because you've renovated it or you've actually are managing it better, right? You've got better cash flow. Then we could, after 6 months, we can base the cash out based on what the after repaired value is. So, you've put more into it. You paid $500 for it. Now it's worth $750. Then now we can do a cash out based on the $750, and you might be able to get back all the money that you put into it. So you just the Burr method, right? You just keep doing it over and over. So anyway, that's all I got for today.
I know we got some new emails that were kicked in from NETAR.
Uh-oh.
Or was it NAR, Joey? Essentially talking about, I'm assuming it's because of China buying up a bunch of stuff in the U.S., but there's some new restrictions in Tennessee that have been put into place as of like last week of dealing with foreigners, non-American citizens purchasing
Oh, really?
real estate.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so I think we're just having to upload our documents and things like that too. So that'll be. Hey, babies.
Interesting. I know that Canada has, because I've talked about to my Canadian friend about buying investment property. It's like, well, they're really cracking down on anybody buying. They want to keep the inventory for the primary residence. Even investors, they're making it difficult. So.
Well, we've already seen that little bit of a slowdown for cash out refinance is a year now instead of 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the DSCR might be able to do it in 6 months, but again, you gotta it just has to appraise and those types of things. So, hey, Goofy. I mean, you're not Goofy. That's Goofy. That's all I got. Glad you can make it. All right. All right. Well, you guys get free food today since you clapped.
Here's a chip for you.